Yes, sir. Welcome to Rollup TV. Happy fucking Friday. Shout out to our boy Thread Guy interviewing CZ today. My goodness. We don't have CZ today, but we got a freaking slot. I'll tell you that. We got Rahul, Gauntlet Institutional Risk Manager. We got Beast, ICO Beast. Kalshi just came out with a monster raise. And we got Avery from Aptos, the CEO, the 𝘗𝘯𝘵𝗦𝘬𝘴 behind the WLFI partnership. Welcome back to Rollup TV. It is a Friday. Markets look great, and we're glad to be here. Kalshi with a $300 million raise at a $5 billion valuation, fresh off the jump right after Polymarket announced theirs. We're gonna get Robbie up in here somewhere, somehow. Let's get him up. Let's get him in the picture. I don't know what camera guy's on. I don't know what that guy's doing, but we'll get him fired up.
What's up,
yes,
brother?
Sir, Rob.
How we doing? Happy Friday.
Kalshi, $300 million raise. Bang.
I gotta pay for those badges, right? A lot of badges.
Someone's got to pay for the Rollup TV. Bang. Bang. Congratulations, Greg. Congratulations to the team. We're gonna talk to ICO Beast about that. Yeah, I mean, man. What a week for prediction markets this week.
It's insane.
What a week.
I had a realization last night. Part of it was based on our conversation with Arthur. The midterms are less than a year, just about a year away. And so the run up to the midterms is going to be just, I mean, think about how bananas the last election was. And now you've got prediction market frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the sports stuff is really just taken over though. Like it's almost like, it's almost like prediction markets went from like this kind of niche thing to now sports just dominating it. And
I think there's two angles to it. One is the sports market. You're right. Kalshi prediction markets have been able to provide better pricing than any sports exchange out there, because the typical VIG was 10%. And so if you look at one of these bet aggregators, yeah, you can see the rate and the lines for all these games, and it'll give you a breakdown of like 7, 8, 9, different, 6 or 7 different odds venues.
Yeah.
And Kalshi beats them all.
Yeah.
And Polymarket beats them all. So they're winning the pricing game on sports markets.
Yeah.
And then the other angle is brand new markets that are not possible anywhere else, like election markets and a lot of the other outcome markets.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the chat. If you're in the chat, say what up. What's going on? We're gonna get fired up today talking about institutional risk management. We've got our boy Rahul ready to come up. We got a quick show today. It's a Friday. We got work to do behind the scenes, pushing things forward. So yeah, guys, we're gonna get Rahul up. We're gonna start talking. We're gonna get going, get fired up about the institutional side of things, and get things dialed in. So yeah, guys, if you're in the chat, if you're on Base app, shout out to you. Shout out to those in the chat. We will see you guys there. But let's get Rahul up and let's get started on our first segment of the day and get fired up. Rahul.
All right. How's it going, guys?
It's good to have you.
Likewise.
It's going well.
Thanks for having me.
Hey,
looks like you're
welcome to the show.
From one of those cubicles
Thank you.
in New York thing, the one with the very closed, quiet space.
Exactly. Gotta
Beautiful,
be focused,
man. What's your Friday looking like?
It's pretty busy. I was in Singapore all last week, so still recovering from the jet lag. Got a few meetings and things today, and then I got the weekend ahead.
Yeah, man. Sweet. Well, it's your first time on the show, man. Would love to just get a quick intro about your role. Like, what does I feel like your role has gotten drastically more important in the last year than it was like the last 3 years. I'm not sure if you were, with Gauntlet the entire time. Maybe just give us a quick backstory about yourself and kind of what your day-to-day is looking like.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a very TradFi background. I did finance in college, worked in TradFi for 9 years, 3 years in investment banking, 3 years in sales and trading at JP and 3 years at BlackRock on their private credit team. Joined Gauntlet about 3.5 years ago and originally joined on the finance team working under the CFO. Then kind of slowly over time, I shifted over to the BD team and was basically working 2 jobs at once. And about 1.5 years ago, I switched over to the BD team full time, where I had institutional partnerships here at Gauntlet.
Beauty. Well, okay, so we know Gauntlet as like Rob, like this risk management kind of DeFi, in the trenches on like Aave governance forms, or like trying to make sure that billions of dollars in smart contracts go safely. I think that's more of like the DeFi kind of native degen almost orientation. When it comes to institutions, I was reading this A16Z crypto blog about enterprise sales and why every crypto team needs enterprise sales, and just kind of looking at things like SLAs, looking at things like uptime guarantees, looking at things like risk frameworks, these types of guarantees. I'm sure you've been talking to a lot of these folks. I'm just curious, like when you're going into these conversations and, approaching institutions in this lens, how different is it from what we're used to, and what is that conversation like?
Yeah, for sure. So the way my mental model of how I think about it is, I think in any decision making process there's essentially an analyst, a decider, and an executor, right? In retail, that's essentially all the same person, right? So you look at something, you see something cool on Twitter, you want to ape into Aster or Hype or whatever other token. You're essentially the analyst, the decider, and the executor. So you're the one doing it all yourself. In an institution, those roles are split amongst multiple different people, right? And so even if you think of a $1 billion whale who just makes all of his decisions himself, in some ways is closer to retail than a $100 million institution, which has these three roles that are all separated. And so a lot of the job and a lot of what the difference between retail and institutional is just figuring out how to kind of manage and play these different roles. So typically in any sales process, you'll talk to the analyst first, and you have to convince them, you have to get them their buy-in. They'll typically take it to the decider, and then there's an internal conversation that happens without you in the room, right? So you have to essentially make sure that the analyst is sufficiently well-informed and educated on what you're trying to do. Then the decider will decide yes or no, and then they'll give it to the executor. And so again, because all these roles are different, you have to approach them in different ways. One thing that I've noticed being on the institutional side before crypto and then being here, I think traditional finance institutions are very, very pragmatic. If something makes money consistently and nobody gets fired for doing it, they're more than happy to kind of do it and jump in and get excited about it. Whereas I think other industries like tech, for example, sometimes people are a little bit more like, hey, if I don't understand the tech, I'm never going to get there. But I do think finance people are relatively pragmatic. And you've seen that over the last year with the new administration. It's completely night and day. And I'm sure you guys have seen it even more than I have, where now, because all the career risk and the regulatory risk has been taken away, or mostly mitigated and taken away, there's a lot more interest in getting into the space. And so we're seeing a ton of inbound. We're getting a lot of inbound that we never used to get. A lot of the conversations we had a year or two ago are rekindling or coming back. It's a very exciting time in the space.
And there used to be this barrier between on-chain finance and off-chain finance, and that barrier is just disappearing. I had a conversation with the head of innovation at Janus Henderson, $450 billion asset under management. We've got 850 million assets on chain right now. Just kind of trying to draw a number out of him, like how much do you expect of your 450 billion to come on chain? And he basically said eventually it's all going to be on chain, but people won't realize it. And so how much of this, when you're looking at to get a little bit deeper into the weeds here, like when you're looking at risk management, how much are you thinking this is just going to be integrated with their existing global risk management system at some hedge fund or institution that has already got a system in place? And then how much of it is building totally from scratch, building these systems in an entirely new way to stand them up either next to or in parallel with an existing risk management system? Like how integrated are those two right now?
Yeah, for sure. And as you guys probably know, Gauntlet's been around for a while, since like 2018. I've been doing this risk management for some of these DeFi lending protocols. Over the last 18 months, we've also started building vaults as well, which is just really an extension of the risk management that we've done in the past. And I think there's a lot of new risks that are introduced with crypto that have to be kind of accounted for, that I think people are really excited and they're really focused on the upside. And I think eventually people are going to realize, and hey, we need to think about some of the market risks that are at play. And, just lending markets work differently. They're very analogous to traditional lending markets, but they do have some key differences, right? So even beyond smart contract risk and some of the technical risks, even just the market risks, like liquidation cascades, the market moves 24/7, 365. That's a whole new risk dimension that's never come up before. I used to joke, or it's not really a joke, it's totally true, that almost all of the biggest blowups in DeFi happen on like Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, when the
Dude, it's
market's
so
open,
true.
right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just like nobody's really watching the screens. And so, that's just something that we've been very steeped in over the last like 7 or 8 years, just have a very good sense of how all that works. And so I do think, and the way that I analogize it is, if you think of like, building a factory in China in like the 90s was not easy. There's a lot of risk involved. There's a lot of ways to blow up, and a lot of people did blow up, but the upside potential was so massive that a lot of people were just willing to take the risk and go forward and kind of figure it out on the fly. And I think it'll be similar with DeFi and crypto, where they'll realize like, hey, the opportunity here is so massive. We're just going to figure the risks out as we go, and the risks alone aren't going to deter us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that a big kind of capital flow that's coming in is these digital asset treasuries. And like the way that you're describing this risk is kind of like, it's basically where I think these are going and how these companies are thinking about it. I think, DFD or DFDV just kind of shifted from this passive vault to this active on-chain strategies. I know you guys are involved there. I'm curious, like what is that shift that is happening right now, and like what is the timeline? When will we actually see institutions deploying this type of treasury capital, digital asset treasury company capital on chain, right? I think the one like 𝘂𝘳𝘃 deposited into Puffer recently, 50 million into Puffer. DFDV is starting to go a bit more deep, a bit deeper into Solana. I see a world where this could be 10%, 20%, 30% of their total capital under management on chain, earning yield in Morpho, Camino, Aave, et cetera, et cetera. What is the timeline for that? What needs to happen for us to see that next wave? Because I truly believe that is like the next big, massive step for just general DeFi. But it feels like it's a slow process here due to just all of the risks. Curious, kind of like what that is gonna take and what that timeline is.
Yeah, 100%. And we've been super bullish, and we've been talking to a lot of the DATs as well. Totally agree with you there. We probably talked to like 20 or 25 of them, almost all the big DATs. And I think if you're a DAT, right, like how do the economics work is that you essentially have this pile of Bitcoin or a pile of these treasury assets, and you trade at a certain MNAV. And everybody wants to trade on an MNAV above 1 or have some premium, because then you can continue to issue debt, equity, et cetera. And there's really two ways to get that improved MNAV. One is you need to have an operating company that makes sense and that is synergistic with the rest of the crypto portfolio. And then two, where we can help, is the yield, right? So if you think of Solana and Ethereum, just table stakes is that they can offer staking and the ETFs can't. Even if the ETFs do have staking, a lot of the times they're not 100% staked, like 50 or 70% staked, because they need time for redemptions, et cetera. And so that's a big blocker. But even beyond that, now all the DATs have stake, and that's table stakes. So how do you have to essentially earn yield over and above the staking rate in a risk-adjusted way. And so one way to do that is on-chain vaults that we run. And so we partner with DFDV, and we've created a special vault specifically for their LST that enables them to earn kind of 300, 400, 500 bips above the regular Solana staking rate. And so they've disclosed, DFDV specifically has disclosed publicly that they have about 10% of their overall treasury in on-chain strategies already. And I think the direction is only going up from there. I can't foresee it going down at this point. And so I think people are coming, and I think it's a competitive market, right? So a lot of these DATs are kind of competing against each other as well. And I think they'll quickly realize, like, hey, if some of these DATs are willing to go on chain and kind of control the risk-adjusted way and earn yield that's better than everybody else, and then they trade at a higher MNAV, that's just naturally going to create enough competitive tension that everybody else will want to do it as well. And obviously there's going to be, some level of blowups. I mean, it's a very wide, very open, very new market. And so obviously the risk management is going to matter there as well. But, we agree. We think a lot of capital is going to come on chain. I'll just say lastly that the Solana DATs have been historically a lot more open to coming on chain versus the Ethereum DATs. But I do think eventually everybody will kind of coalesce around having some on-chain strategy. I think it's just going to become as table stakes as staking is today.
So what are you advising them to kind of do? Like, if you were in the position to advise Tom Lee, right? If you're looking at Tom Lee, I think he's got maybe just over 10 billion right now in ETH. is there a capital allocation strategy that you would recommend for these people based on your experience? Obviously, you know, not financial advice. We're not putting you on the chopping block here, but like, what would you recommend to these larger Ethereum dApps, and then what would you recommend to these larger Solana dApps to kind of progressively, you know, get on chain?
Yeah, look, I think it's a portfolio approach, right? Which is, we're not telling you to go full port 100% into our vaults. Probably that would not be good for either side. So it's really a portfolio approach, and you know, you can start with kind of 5 or 10% on chain, like PFTV has disclosed, and kind of build from there. For Ethereum, what's really interesting is restaking. So we have several restaking vaults as well, which we know, you know, 𝘱𝘳𝘃 has been involved in. There's also, you know, Morpho vaults that generate Ethereum yield that's above the staking rate in a lot of cases. So that's very interesting. One thing that BTCS has done is that they've also been able to get leverage on chain. And so they'll put up their ETH as collateral, borrow dollars against it on, say, Morpho, and then use that to buy more ETH. And so the cost of capital to borrow to do levered long ETH in DeFi is way cheaper than it is in TradFi. And so even if you don't care about the on-chain staking stuff or the vault stuff, just the ability to get way cheaper yield or way cheaper borrow on your assets is, I think, a huge game changer.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, so are the vaults that you guys are using for these, are they specifically, like, are you specifically using Morpho? Could you maybe just talk to us about the composition of the vaults a bit?
Yeah, so we use both. We're pretty open. So Gauntlet as a whole is about $1.7 billion of TVL total across stablecoin yield strategies, Ethereum, Solana, et cetera. So about 80% is on EVM, 20% on SVM. So we're on both Drift and Morpho. We're going to come to Camino very soon. And, you know, for us, we're very chain agnostic. So we'll go wherever the clients are.
But you're not on Aave because Mark Zeller scared you off.
Yeah, something like that.
Rahul, what do you think is the risk, just as a risk management firm here in DeFi, what do you think is the riskiest sector? Now, there's a lot of like potential. I think as we climb higher and higher, people are like, okay, they're looking for like what could, you know, bring it all crashing down. Like, what do you think that could potentially be?
Yeah, it's an interesting question of like, you know, what is this cycle's FTX, or what is the thing that's going to blow everybody up? You know, I'm naturally an optimist. Maybe that's why I'm in crypto. It's hard for me to see a very obvious FTX, and maybe that was, maybe if you asked me in 2021, I would have said if FTX is totally fine too. But I do think there's a few key differences, right? Where right now a lot of it is on DeFi. So there's not as many centralized exchanges like Celsius, or centralized ways to get yield like Celsius that are complete black boxes. People who are earning yield today are earning yield in DeFi, so you have just natural transparency. There's not really an obvious FTX. A lot of the big perpetuals exchanges like Hyperliquid, Drift, et cetera, don't also have a hedge fund next to them that creates some potential contagion risk. I think you could probably point to some of the dApps, but I think a lot of the big dApps are pretty well run. Like Tom Lee, Mike Saylor, Joe Shalom at SBET, Samani at Forward. I think they're all pretty well run, but there's always a risk that some of the smaller dApps or some of the dApps that are more focused on long tail assets could have issues or could be forced into somewhat of a downward spiral. But I don't think that they're necessarily contagion-wide market effects.
Okay, so the smaller dApps, even if there is some sort of long tail risk in these smaller dApps, you don't foresee them kind of cascading and creating any kind of headwinds and compounding that could bring larger dApps down as a result of it?
Yeah, so you can also split up small dApps into two sections, right? So one is if you're a small Ethereum dApp, right? And let's just say you end up trading at 0.75 times your NAV. That's a 25% discount. I got to think Tom Lee or the folks at SBET would love to buy Ethereum at a 25% discount, right? And so, like, you know, there's always a chance that people do non-economic things and kind of panic. But I do think generally, if you're already in Ethereum and there's much larger Ethereum dApps out there, they should be wanting to buy you unless there's some fundamental problems with the opco. That said, I think if you're in a DAT that you've essentially created a DAT around like the 80th largest coin and some random shitco or something, then I don't know if there's a lot of buyers eager to buy up your assets. But I also think that they're small enough that their blow up will be contained.
Yeah. Shifting off the DAT kind of more into some interesting kind of private credit market that we've been hearing about and establishing. is on-chain leverage for these RWAs becoming like a reality? I know that you spoke about how some like, Bit Digital or some of these, ETH DATs are going to borrow on Aave or Morpho or whatever. Is Apollo's ACRED, tokenized credit looping, like, is there actually going to be like institutions experimenting with tokenized credit as collateral on Gauntlet? And like, how does that really work?
Yeah, so we launched something with Apollo and Securitize and Morpho a few months ago. That was exactly this, right? So Apollo has an off-chain fund called ADCF. They've tokenized that. Securitize has tokenized that into a fund called ACRED. And so we were able to essentially get leverage on ACRED for customers. So you can take your ACRED, you can put it up as collateral on Morpho, you can borrow dollars against it, and you can use that to buy more ACRED. And so the borrow rates are about 5 or 6%. ACRED yields 8 or 9%. I think our leverage return on that is about 18%, which is great for private credit. Maybe not as exciting for crypto. But yeah, so I think that was a very successful kind of experiment, first run at it. And we've got a lot of interest, a lot of inbound from other folks interested in doing something like this. So, all the rails are set up. It's really just a matter of educating the buyer base about this and getting them interested and involved.
And why would somebody want to collateralize tokenized credit? So you've got this credit vehicle or this credit facility that you can tokenize and effectively make that asset, which would previously be extremely illiquid or effectively, you can't really do much with that other than whatever's in it. Then you can take that asset, tokenize it, and make it kind of more capital efficient. Sounds like a lot of rehypothecation, but it obviously you guys have risk parameters. Is it just that simple? It's just, this is an asset that you really couldn't have done much previously with. Now you can do much more on chain with it in its tokenized form.
Yeah. So the analogy to think of is back leverage. So this concept already exists in TradFi, right? So if you're a big family office, you have $100 million of an Apollo credit fund, you can go to a specialized lender who will give you leverage against that credit fund as collateral, right? But to do that, you typically need to have very large size. You can't just do it with any dollar amount. And then it's also a very intensive process and long and arduous, et cetera. We can do that exact same thing, typically much cheaper, much faster, and with any dollar amount of capital. And so we're essentially just making this product like 10 or 100x better than it is in the traditional finance world, but still using a lot of the same parameters and ideas. In terms of like rehypothecation, it's not rehypothecation in the sense of like, it's just a fund that we're putting up, borrowing against, and then buying more of the original fund. And so you're not necessarily adding a ton more leverage into the system that wasn't there already. And then the way that we run it is we run it relatively low LTVs, about 50%. So you have a very, very wide ability to draw down without being liquidated.
Makes sense. Dude, I'm curious kind of your thoughts on this neobank meta. We have entered this world where like Plasmas came out with their Plasma 1, Galaxy came out with their Galaxy 1. EtherFi has been absolutely cranking. I just checked my email this morning and I had $2.22 of cashback referrals from EtherFi. Shout out to those who are using the EtherFi card. Do you see this as competitive to like the Venmos, the Revoluts, the Cash Apps, the PayPals? Are these going after the more like commercial banks like the JPMs, the Wells Fargos? Is this something that we're excited about in the space, but maybe like isn't going to materialize? Or is it something that is like probably a really good use case, from this institutional lens that you're viewing a lot of this asset class from? How is your perspective shaping around this neobank meta, if you will?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think for a long time, crypto has been very retail focused. And I think people usually thought of that as a weakness, that, hey, it's not sophisticated. There's a bunch of degens and, crazy guys all over the world just doing this stuff. And I think the neobank trend or meta is kind of a way to flip that and to make ostensibly its weakness, that it's very retail driven, to a strength, right? That, hey, a lot of the people who are already in crypto are probably consumers of these neobanks, like Robinhood, Venmo, et cetera. And for whatever reason, retail folks who are maybe not as deep in crypto are just easier folks to sell. Like I said at the very beginning, right? You have essentially the analyst, the decider, and the executor all in one person, in one spot, right? In one brain. Versus an institution, it's a much harder sell. So I do think it's just especially now that regulations have loosened up, the Stablecoin Act, et cetera. A lot of these neobanks also want to have their own stablecoin, and they view that as a huge advantage. And so I do think you'll see the convergence between traditional finance and crypto, maybe even start in fintechs and then go to traditional finance later. Whereas a lot of people thought it would go the other way, where, okay, we're going to first convert JP Morgan and then convert the world. And it might be that a big bank like JP Morgan is one of the last to convert, but in the meantime, we'll get PayPal, Venmo, Robinhood, et cetera.
The JP Morgans of the world do seem like they're coming along. They are releasing some restrictions and allowing people to come in and buy some crypto. But then they're also, in this group of major banks that are thinking about exploring a type of stable coin and potentially joining up with other major banks and launching stable coins. Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank are all on that list. So when you are looking at the stablecoin landscape and you're thinking, okay, we've got these on-chain native stable coins, and we've even got kind of these crossover incumbents that have been around for a while, and we have this new issuance from potentially too big to fail banks. How do you see this landscape playing out? Where do you think there's opportunities? Where do you think that there's potential risks?
Yeah, I think it comes back to stable coins in a way are such a great business because you essentially get real dollars that you can reinvest in treasuries or whatever else like Tether is doing. And you have these digital dollars that are moving around. I do think the economic benefit of just owning a stable coin is so vast that I think a lot of them will try to do it on their own. Whether they'll fail or succeed, I think we'll see. But I just think like the incentives are such that you want to own your own stable coin. You want the economics. You want to get essentially the treasury fees that you're getting. Even if rates get cut, it's still so much better than just getting a rev share of Circle or Tether or something like that. So I do think everyone's at least going to try to have their own stable coin. And then I also think that there's going to be a lot of interest and demand for these middleware companies where I can easily convert like a JP Morgan coin to like a Bank of America coin to USDC to Tether. And I think a lot of, the M&A that we've seen with like Stripe and Bridge and BNVK, et cetera, like that, are all related to this.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's Stripe got Bridge for $1 billion. And I saw Mike Dudas tweet, and I saw another girl tweet about this yesterday that was a steal. I'm sure you probably agree. Seeing that BVNK is going for $2 billion now, and I'm not sure the difference in those companies, but the M&A happening in this part of the ecosystem is absolutely insane. Like, I mean, it's scary because it's indicative of like late stage business cycle behavior, but it is firing right now.
Well, Andy, why do you say that? Why do you say that it's indicative of late cycle behavior?
Well, I mean, you got all these people that missed out on what was clearly happening the last couple of years, and now they're trying to jump on the train, and the train's already taken off from the station, but they're jumping on the train. And so usually when you see that behavior of like large players jumping on the train of a trend that they missed, it's because they're feeling pressure from other competitors or other people, and it's just indicative, I think, of FOMO. It's basically FOMO at like the biggest scale. It's like when you try to go ape a Binance shitcoin because it's already at like 20 mil market cap, but you saw it at 10 mil. It's like kind of the same thought process, but like billions.
I think it could be both. Like, I don't disagree with either, right? So like the way that I think about M&A is that it's a very large and intense process. And like, paying $1 billion for a company requires a lot of like approvals and a lot of like broad agreement within the company that it makes sense. They could have bought Bridge like probably way cheaper like a few years ago, but the business case hadn't been made internally that it was so obvious to do. And so, you do see a lot of this M&A at the later stages where now you can look back on the last few years, especially with the new administration, and say, yes, this makes a ton of sense, and I'm willing to pay $1 billion, which may even be a steal, as you said, in hindsight. And look, like M&A is in some ways is the pinnacle of what a company can do to show its commitment to a space, right? Like the lowest level is probably a press release that doesn't mean anything. In the middle, there's probably launching some products. But buying a company, doing M&A, or even investing in a company, right, as just a strategic partner is not as much of a commitment as buying an entire company, because you're committing the entire company. Stripe is committing its entire company to essentially buying and absorbing these startups, or Coinbase or whoever does it. And so I think it can be both, right? Like, it could be indicative of pretty late stage stuff, but I think this big M&A doesn't typically happen at the start of the cycle for also somewhat obvious reasons.
Yeah. I mean, Stripe is just building out their own. I mean, Stripe is basically saying we don't even need banks. Like, we're going to have Stripe Chain Tempo, we're going to have Stripe accounts, we're going to have Bridge, we're going to have Privy, and you're not even going to need to use your bank account anymore. It's just going to be full on. We're already connected to basically every payment provider and processor in the world. I mean, we might as well just skip the last mile and just do it kind of on chain in terms of settlement. And so that has been my current barometer for the best case that I've seen so far for a full kind of ecosystem completion. If you were to try to get rid of the last mile dealing with the banks. I don't know if you guys see it that way as well, but
probably won't go down without a fight is my intuition.
Yeah.
Rahul, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think what I do think is clear is that there's a ton of competition in kind of every vertical. I don't think nobody's really got a monopoly. The game is not over. People call Bitcoin the blue chip, asset, but which is kind of funny for maybe TradFi people. But yeah, I think nothing is stable. Everything is constantly shifting. And so I think everyone's going to go for it, right? And I think the big difference is that, Pablo and Tether were probably always going to do it. But what I think is interesting is now you have Stripe and some of these maybe not perfectly crypto native companies going for it. So then it becomes also a question of what's more important, distribution or tech? And arguably the non-crypto players have way better distribution, but maybe they have worse tech, but maybe they can buy companies that have better tech, right? So, Stripe's view is probably that we've got all this great distribution that's outside of crypto. Crypto is relatively small relative to everything else. We can buy these companies that help us get the tech and offset some of our weaknesses otherwise. And then I think for Tether and Pablo, it's how can we buy a lot of distribution, or how can we make up what we lack on the distribution side? And so, I don't know. I think it's a pretty open field. It's tough to know exactly who's going to win. I think I'd probably give a little bit of an edge to the distribution side of it, just because distribution is super, super important. And it's something that I think crypto people tend to underestimate. Yeah, it's an open field.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that time and time again the last couple months where, things like Hyperliquid perps going on Phantom and MetaMask, or, Bridge for Stripe, or all these different things for Tether, Plasma, Stable, etc. So, Rahul, Goyle, any weekend plans for you?
Just hanging out with the family,
Look at that. Get a family man, an institutional TradFi family man on the dark side. Gotta love it.
Rahul, I got one more for you. Just
zoom
it out a little bit. I grew up playing poker, and that's kind of a lens through which I view risk. I'm just curious, do you have any piece of it, either wisdom or stories that you've heard that have kind of changed your perspective on risk? Working at a global risk firm, when you guys are thinking about this and you're thinking through some of the factors that could go into making decisions, has there been any bits and pieces of wisdom that you've heard over the years that have really just fundamentally stuck with you?
Yeah, there's one kind of very pithy one-liner I heard back when I was on the trading floor that I like a lot, which is disagreements make markets, right? And just the idea that hey, you can get two people in a room who can disagree on something, and it's not destructive, but it can make a market. And so you and I can disagree on the price of a stock, and boom, a market is created, right? I'm a buyer, you're a seller, et cetera. And so I think we apply a lot of that to Gauntlet, right? I mean, we have very kind of open discussions about different things, about different risk factors. Whenever there's a risk factor, some people think it's overrated, some people think it's underrated. And so being willing and able to have that open discussion, I think, is really important.
Yeah, it's the nature of healthy competition.
Disagreements make markets. Rahul, thank you for your time, man. Wish you the best and great work. Look forward to hanging out in New York. We'll be up there in a couple of weeks. We have some events, some institutional type of facing stuff. So we'll definitely shoot you an invite. Would love to see you out there, and we'd love to meet up.
Awesome. Sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy.
See you next time.
Thanks,
man. Boom, boom, boom. Disagreements make markets.
Disagreements make markets.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder what else he heard on the trading floor.
Healthy competition. Yeah, probably quite a bit, right?
We skipped that part of our career phase. We just went straight to Twitter. Twitter is the new trading floor.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, guys. Up next, we've got ICO Beast, head of crypto strategy at Kalshi. So we're gonna get him up. And what a day for Kalshi with the $300 million raise. Yeah, I mean, couldn't even. I mean, yeah, it's $5 billion valuation. You know, Paradigm, Coinbase Ventures. Like, what are you looking for when you invest at a $5 billion valuation? Like, you're looking for a generational exit. Like, you know, you know, Circle's market cap, I think right now in the stock market is like 25 billion, 25 to 30 billion. You know, I don't know what, I guess Tether was raising at 500 billion, if I'm not mistaken, 20 billion at 500 bill.
Yeah, $500 billion matched.
So, you know, that's the
OpenAI.
type of scale that you'd be looking for if you're getting in at 5 bill for 100x.
That would be 100x.
Yeah.
Which is certainly in the cards for prediction market companies. I also think that there's a group of investment firms that are looking at this as a distribution play, a tech play, similar to what we heard from Rahul.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're looking for outperformance. They're looking for growth in their money, but it's also about complementing the rest of their portfolio. When I think about this, Sequoia, you know, Paradigm, like there's companies here that have their fingers in a lot of different industries.
Yeah.
And to get like prediction markets are the oracle of all oracles. They are like the truth machine. And that can play a really fundamental role in increasing the market cap of a lot of their other portcos as these things partner up together. So I think that is a playing field that's still playing out, and it's still quite early.
But, you know, it's crazy. Like the NYSE basically is saying, like, look, we want to take a decent stake in this thing, because it's like they see the value of you know, effectively of what's coming and what's happening. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, that is pretty insane when you think about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to chat with ICO Beast. Obviously been around the space for a long time. And now Kalshi is, I want to confirm a stat that I saw that we're seeing a lot of data float around because prediction markets are just the pinnacle of the zeitgeist right now. But I saw that Kalshi flipped Polymarket in terms of volume.
Yep.
And I'm curious where open interest stacks up, because obviously Polymarket got like a 3-year head start, maybe a 2-year head start. And for Kalshi to have grown to the extent that now they've caught up and potentially gone and exceeded and superseded that in terms of volume and open interest, means the growth rate here is it's incredible. So we'll have ICO
all right, well, let's
Beast
get
to join
ICO Beast
us.
up. It should be a fun segment to talk with him, get him fired up. And yeah, we'll talk about Kalshi's race. So we'll bring him up in a second and get fired up. There's some guys outside my house cutting a massive tree down. It's leaning into my pool frame here. So I don't know if you can hear that. I doubt you can.
No. You're good. You're good over there.
It's sketchy. It's a huge tree. It's leaning into my
Reminds me of a hurricane
property.
when I was young. I saw my screen outside just blow away in the wind.
I just see branches just freaking dropping and flying down. It's just like, what's going on out here, boys?
Yeah, that is the hurricane of prediction markets descending upon you.
The hurricane
ICO
of
Beast.
prediction markets.
Let's get him up. He's ready. We've got so much
Yes,
to talk
sir.
about. There he is. There he
Yes,
is.
sir.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Dude,
Absolute pleasure.
breaking the
Thanks for coming.
news. $300 million raise, $5 billion valuation. Wow.
Yeah, man, it's exciting, and I think the really cool thing is this raise, it closed before the hockey stick started on volume and open interest. So you can do with that what you will, but it's the future is very, very bright here.
Desiree, I love bros vibe. There you go. Your fans are in the house.
Could you fact check us real quick? This was a stat that we saw that Kalshi is now the largest prediction market.
Yes, that's factual. So we cleared, I want to say it was just shy of like 950 million in volume last week. The week before was around $1 billion. So maybe I have those numbers backwards. But we actually just cleared, I think it's 1.4 billion in open interest, flipping the next competition by about $200 million. So we are, I think, on most of the relevant metrics, the largest prediction market in the world now.
Wow.
Incredible.
And so ICO, talk to us about this expansion strategy too, right? You know, I think when we were looking at Kalshi, we're obviously American, you know, we got some pushback. People were saying, oh, it's only for Americans. Oh, I can't use the platform. what is the result of this expansion? What are some of the key jurisdictions that we'll be able to break into for Kalshi? Why is this important to the global strategy here? Talk to us about that part.
Yes, I think the most important piece of it, and what we really think everybody should be aware of, is that this is a single global liquidity pool now. So instead of having segmented, offshoot, one-off discrete markets across 100+ different jurisdictions, it's a single unified liquidity pool. And so what that does is it gives you much deeper liquidity on every single market that trades on Kalshi, which ends up leading to much pure information and price discovery. And it's very different than having a segment and allowing for strange MEV, slot attacks, or like toxic flow and strange arbitrage, because everybody's trading on the same liquidity pool. So ultimately, it's a better experience for the user. It's better for even the non-users, but those observing the market lines and trying to figure out what truth really is. It becomes a better oracle because you got all of liquidity concentrated in one place. So that's a huge unlock. There isn't anybody else that does that right now.
I don't think people realize how massive that is, because a global unified liquidity pool means tighter spreads across several orders of markets. And this is obviously important as you guys are diving into new sectors. I think you already have the best odds of any sports book on pretty much every major sport that's out there. But really where I think this makes the difference is on some of these edge markets, some of the ones on the periphery, especially as this is kind of the golden goose here. I'd love to talk more about permissionless market creation, where anyone can come in. Maybe you have to stake some cash requirement or token requirement or something like this. And then if you do, then you can create markets. The issue has always been fragmentation, liquidity fragmentation and market segments. As you expand the number of markets on the platform, how do you get liquidity and tight spreads to all of them? A global liquidity pool. That's how you do it, unified liquidity. So maybe you could just talk more about how you see the market expansion and the growth of the number of markets and the categories happening on Kalshi.
Yeah, so right now our markets listing team, they end up scoping out, and they have their various contracts they can list and different flavors of each of those. And so they're always looking for culture events. We obviously have sports, we have politics, we've got weather. Weather's actually really interesting when there's a huge, I think a $25 billion annual market on weather derivatives, because it's a genuinely useful hedging tool. To allow farmers or insurance companies, various players where hurricanes, typhoons, rainfall, drought, heat, irregular weather patterns, all those things matter. And being able to express a hedge in either direction to limit your directional exposure due to producibles or crops or any of these other things, it's a truly a new financial unlock. And with deeper liquidity, those become way more interesting. With international, you've got the ability to have those instruments available in a lot more jurisdictions than before. Because if you look at the global population, it was 5% of the world was able to access Kalshi before today. And that number went way up with this new unlock. So it's just a totally new user base. You've got tons of global liquidity now that has access to trading on the markets that we have. And it's just the beginning. We're excited about what's coming up, but this is a huge day for us.
Dude, I think you raised a really interesting point. And I saw a tweet about this, that we can start to frame the concept of prediction markets as almost as a growing sector of the insurance category, right? As you mentioned, right, you're a farmer in the Midwest and your crop season is, October. It's the end of the season now, right? It's getting into winter. There's ways which you could, effectively take hedges on the weather or take hedges on the output of certain industries to hedge your own outputs from your business, that is your local farm or your local, product distribution, whatever that product may be. Extrapolate that to your happiness. Let's say you're a massive Toronto Blue Jays fan, right? They just won the ALDS versus the Yankees. I hit on that on Kalshi, and we could probably show some Kalshi markets.
Crazy extrapolation.
But what if I wanted to hedge my depression should they have lost, if I was a diehard fan, just by hedging on the Yankees? Now, perhaps that's a silly one, but I think maybe you could start to think about these prediction markets as not just speculation and fun, which I think that is it. I think it really is financialization of a lot of things, and kind of this whole kind of gambling on like speculation on everything type of idea. But like, I see, maybe I'm curious, what is your like insurance philosophy here with prediction markets? Like, is this just too early to be, this insurance idea, or are we kind of at the beginnings of this? How do you think about this idea when it comes to prediction markets?
Oh, I think it's entirely likely and probably even probable that that's where this goes. I mean, you could see, I don't think we have any markets for this. I'm not sure if anybody does, but you could easily see a market where you have insurance companies hedging against accident rates or claim rates and those sort of things. And if somebody believes they've got a better handle on it, they can take the opposite side of that trade. A really interesting one, you mentioned kind of like happiness or enjoyment markets. Like, that's not how we traditionally think of insurance, but it is a pure way of doing that. And one of the largest weather markets that we've had previously were the snow markets in New York City. And so I don't know if this is how users were operating, but you could almost see if it's like getting later in the season and users want to hedge against the unfortunateness of getting snowed in or having to like slog to work or have to step in a puddle on the way to the metro. They could take a hedge against expecting it to snow. Like there's a huge range of ways that these things can like operate, and that's the fun part about like being able to work on the cutting edge of a new financial primitive, is you just don't know. You don't even know how users are going to find interesting ways to play around with these. So it's exciting. People are always coming with new angles on these things. We're coming up with new markets all the time. I think the culture markets are fascinating. So like we've got markets about Dancing with the Stars and like Survivor and convention markets are so interesting, because I think it turns like pop culture and social media and reality television, it takes it from being a pure consumption media and it turns it into participation media. And I think that anybody that grew up with siblings or that has watched people play video games or watched sports or whatever, that being able to be part of the action is a different paradigm. We saw this with Twitch. You used to be able to watch TV, watch YouTube videos, watch whatever, but then Twitch comes along and they add the concept of a live chat. So no longer is it just you are consuming the media, but you're actually participating in the media with the personality there. And so mention markets and culture markets, they add a new layer of financialization on top of that. So it's really a totally different form of consuming media, and it seems like it's really sticky.
I have normie friends that love the culture markets, the Taylor Swift markets, the Dancing with the Stars. Like, there's such niche portions of culture that have such rabid followings. They love to know where things are coming from and what is happening. And then the flip side of that is it is a very useful tool. So it's got an entertainment, but also a functionality to it. Like, Trump is going to go talk to China about soybeans and threaten soybeans as, the potentially tariff to work a China deal. It's like, if I'm a soybean farmer, I'm shitting right now. Like, I am thinking that I'm going to get tariffed out the wazoo, and I can hedge that with very tight spreads in liquid markets. I'd really like to hone in on your role, head of crypto strategy, because a lot of this is prediction markets as a whole, and we can riff on prediction markets because it really stretches into so many areas. But in particular, I'd love to know what Kalshi's crypto strategy is. As head of crypto strategy at Kalshi, could you please, explain, describe, illuminate us what is Kalshi's crypto?
John Wang dropped the bomb at Token as well about the plans to launch on Solana, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe you could,
if you could pick up where he left off, that'd be great.
Yes, I may have to backtrack just a smidge. I don't actually know. I don't think my title is head of crypto strategy. That's a great title. I like it. But I don't actually know if that's officially internal.
I don't know where our subtitle producer got that from, but
I'll have to go talk to Tarek though. I like.
We'll go with head of memes.
We changed the head of memes. So, whether you're head of strategy or just memeing around,
it's a little bit of both. So, I mean, I work with the product team. So we're developing the crypto side of the business. I also work with like funding flows and liaising between the engineering team and the crypto ecosystem team. There's pieces of ecosystem development, so interfacing with external builders and trying to hook them up with engineering resources. Ultra also handles a lot of the engineering stuff. And then there's the affiliate network and partnerships and media. So I end up being a part of most of those discussions as well. So it's a little bit of everything. We've got a pretty large growth team at Kalshi, and we have a small crypto team, but we kind of all are part of this growth team because, I mean, the crypto arm is like a month old. So we're in rapid growth mode. But I think that's the way that I would best describe my position is really a mixture of product and growth. And it's a lot of fun. So I get to test out what third parties are developing to go alongside Kalshi. I get to talk with institutional partners. I don't think I can share a ton about what is coming up for the crypto side. That hopefully is coming much sooner than later.
Nice.
I don't want to steal any thunder from John. I know he did mention a little bit at Token, but I don't want to let too many details out yet. We want to make sure the arrival of all that cool tooling and product side happens correctly. So sorry to let you down there and burst the bubble.
I mean, my take is we got Kalshi token next year, maybe Kalshi L1, probably Polymarket token next year, maybe even Polymarket L1, and then you got Limitless, Myriad, all the rest. I think we're just going to see a whole new category of crypto tokens is about to be created, I think, here that we've not had. I think Myriad may be the first one to go TGE with Limitless, but there's obviously kind of two giants here in the equation that I think that the market is going to respond the strongest to. And kind of on that note, ICO, man, I got to ask you about this badge war going on right now. Man, this is fucking crazy, dude. Like, it is every day. There's one Kalshi announcement, one Polymarket announcement. It is madness. It feels like a massive digital land grab happening right now in the space that we've never, maybe the closest thing we've seen to this is like Ethereum and Solana back in like last cycle maybe, or it's hard to even say, maybe like Optimism versus Arbitrum when they first launched as L2s, or even going back to like Uniswap and SushiSwap. It is mad. Man, what is your perspective on this kind of talent land grab happening in the prediction market space? Do you see this continuing to accelerate? And maybe this gets us into this whole prediction markets as a form of content and media thesis. But yeah, talk to us about this land grab happening. What is your perspective?
Yeah, it absolutely is a land grab. It's kind of a clash of the titans. I think that's a good way of putting it. But prediction markets, it's interesting. For a long time, there have been people on crypto Twitter that have talked about prediction markets. Not a ton of people, and honestly, most haven't done it more because for a long time, prediction market content didn't do very well in the algorithm. People didn't really interact with it. I mean, I was making content on prediction markets about a year or so ago, and it just didn't go very far. So ended up kind of moving away from it. But it's becoming obviously part of the cultural zeitgeist now. And it is a bit of a gold rush or a land grab. I think it's telling about where we are as an industry. It's also telling that this is the current hot frontier. I think that's great. The reality is the TAM for prediction markets is almost limitless. Mm-hmm. You've got basically any event has the ability for a market. And as long as time continues, there will be events. And then the actual market that could be interested in this is everybody. Events impact everybody. And so you've got this massive user base and this massive event base. And so you look at that and you say, well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of nuts how fast these things are growing and expanding. But the ceiling really doesn't even exist. It's just gonna eat everything. So it's been fun to be a part of, trying to build out our roster. It's obviously it's fierce competition, but honestly, I think it's good for everybody. We want to compete. We want to keep it friendly and clean. We want to I have friends that are affiliates with competitors. Obviously, I work at Kalshi, so I'm a huge Kalshi guy. But I'm friends with all these guys in the industry, and it's something where I want to see us all win. Obviously, there will be top dog, second in command, and that's going to happen. But we're here to play ball. We want to fight, but we want to keep it clean too.
Yeah, and it's still early. There's like you said, when it comes to infinite imagination, there's plenty of room to go. There's plenty of room to go here. Basically infinite. And so, I mean, you guys are certainly on your way now. 300 million at 5 billion. what are you guys going to use the money for?
Fortunately for me, that answer is way above my pay grade.
More land grabs, clearly.
What would you? Yeah, more land grabs. What I said, what would you go out? Would you spend it on market creation? You would go land grab some more affiliates?
So, I mean, it's funny because I don't really even know how large companies that raise tons of money spend all of that money. Like, I've never been in the driver's seat for that. I imagine there's some earmarked for growth. I imagine there's a bunch earmarked for engineering, because I mean, ultimately you want the most performant matching engines. You want your SDKs to be great for third-party integrations and partners. I mean, there's probably some money earmarked for partnerships and attracting like big names in that regard. So yeah, I think there's a huge range. I feel like when companies are like entering that hockey stick growth phase, it really is. It's a cash furnace. You're shoveling money into the furnace to continue fueling the growth. And so that's like, it's good to have a war chest, because obviously, like, if you look at the numbers, exchange volume, traders, and all of that, like we're clearly in a pure growth phase. And so having a war chest to keep that going is something awesome.
Is there I'm just curious, this just occurred to me. How does the market making on Kalshi work? Is there a chance you guys would use part of this budget either market making yourselves or incentivizing market making?
So I will say I don't know the inner workings of this, but I do know that like all trades on Kalshi and other prediction markets, they're peer to peer. So it's not like counter trading users or anything. It's there is some other counterparty that is taking the trades. And anybody can place limits, anybody can place orders, assuming that you're able to use the platform, obviously. I think there are some markets that have rewards enabled from time to time. We're not allowed to trade on the exchange as employees, so I don't really get to see firsthand.
Really?
Yeah. So I believe it's a compliance rule for any CFTC regulated exchanges that employees CME employees can't trade on CME, like that sort of thing.
Wow. So you can't trade on Kalshi?
Yeah, I get to look at the product.
You can't trade on Kalshi?
Correct. I can't because I'm employed here, so we're restricted from markets.
Wow. Damn, that's a bummer. Well, I got a Kalshi account, so if you got any good ideas, just let a homie know.
Yeah, we got a new segment called Rumor Mill. You just send them our way.
Yeah, if there's any rumors. I see, man, like your rise to like your journey in crypto Twitter has been absolutely remarkable. Just absolutely have just been all over the timeline. And you've kind of like created this own like category of people almost, you and Bread Guy kind of created this like acqui-hire thing where like you tweet your way. I think Thread Guy would be like, tweet your, quit your job and tweet basically. Yeah. And Thread Guy has freaking CZ on. So that is the state of affairs that we're in. I'm so stoked. You guys have a market for TVPN's Sam Altman show today of like mention markets. I wish we had a CZ Thread Guy one because I'm tempted to just keep this stream going, Rob, because I think Thread's going on in like an hour and just play Thread stream on our stream and just react to it because it's going to be wild. But talk to us about some of this like growth that you've had, man. Like it's been remarkable, and maybe just some insights for the algo, some insights for where the algo is today, some insights for building community, for kind of having this stronghold over a certain like niche or topic, and then kind of also you're still working with like Sui, or you're still working with some of these 𝘬𝘳𝘺 leaderboard projects, but doing it in a way that is like, and you've pushed this idea of like not selling your brand out. So yeah, just like kind of like holistically, I'm curious, maybe just some of your feedback, thoughts, lessons from this growth and kind of what you've seen along the way.
Yeah, man, it's been a really crazy last couple of years. I wake up in the morning and pinch myself because I'm like, wow, I get to wake up, talk about the industry that I love, build cool products, and help the space grow. And it's something that I never would have expected like 18 months ago even. It was, I mean, I had a traditional Web 2 job. Like people know my background generally. I haven't been like specific on it, but people know that I have a tech background, I have a legal background, and ended up being able to make the jump over here. And that was generally because of growth on crypto Twitter. And it's just like a funny ride. There was a couple years ago where I looked at the state of affairs on crypto Twitter, and I was like, I think we need more people that are here because they genuinely love crypto and they want to help people figure out how to win in crypto, not just figure out how to make money for themselves. And that was kind of the thesis is, hey, show up every day, try to provide value to people and see what happens. And so like in my head, it was, okay, I'm going to do this and I'll do it while it's fun. And that'll be that. And then it turned into something a lot bigger. People seem to resonate with the thesis. They seem to get it and realize like, oh, there's enough room here. The pie is big enough for people to still win together. It doesn't have to be this like extremely extractive PvP space. And so I think that really fueled a lot of it, was just trying to approach it with this genuine perspective. Hey, I want to make money here. I want to win, but I also want other people to come with me. And that's like really what it is. I think if you're trying to start out like from nothing at this point on crypto Twitter, it's tough. I think the fastest way and the best way to get attention is to help people make money. That's what a lot of people on crypto Twitter want, is they want to make money. Like we all think the tech's cool. We think permissionless money transfer, we think smart contracts, all this is neat, but money is a large indicator and people want to make money. So if you can figure out how to help people make money in a way that's like very above board and trying to do things the right way, people respect that. And like the way I cast it early on was, I want to make myself a liability for people to fade. So if I'm talking about stuff and you're not listening to it, you're missing out on easy spots and like free money. And that was kind of how it played out, especially through the like Q4 of 2024 and early 2025. I got lucky on a bunch of different narratives, things that seemed like they were going to pop off and be hot. I was early to and was talking about, and people noticed that 'cause they were like, "Oh my goodness, that was a crazy trade." And the ability to do that a couple times, you can kind of parlay that a couple times, and then you get that meteoric follower growth, and then you kind of are able to. It's tough because I can't like tweet out small caps anymore, just as like a matter of rationale. Like it's irrational to like tweet a 1 mil market cap coin when you've got 60,000 followers, because that just it skews the chart. It's weird, and so that's been kind of the deviation from the early growth phase into more of working with some like really high caliber brands in the space and putting eyes on neat products that they're building. Is that those are things that I can feel good about sharing with people, and I think they're cool and like good for people to use, or high value spots. But it's not like tweeting out a ticker and then watching the chart pump really hard, and then obviously people sell, and whoever bought the top is unhappy. And so it's been a process, a transition process too.
I feel you. I feel weird tweeting cash tags sometimes. Like I've built my brand on like technical rigor, like long form written and video content back in 24 with Rob. We were doing so much like deep technical content. And then as you know, one thing that I'm sure you've seen and that you'll kind of, come to appreciate as you go through more and more of these cycles is the type of content that like earns you respect, engagement, impressions, etc., changes as the market changes. Oh, so like I almost felt like we had a leash on us in like 2023, 2024. There wasn't much happening in the market in terms of actual fundamental project growth. It was like meme coins and it was Bitcoin. And so like the type of stuff that we would do was like, again, like technical infra stuff. As the market has changed, it's not that they use like narrative kind of like beta chase, but it's like you can start to be more bullish. You can start to like tweet about ideas of speculative of concepts, and like the market accepts that content better than what they would like in, kind of downturn. So there's also an element here, I think, for you is like that your strategy can change as the market evolves in terms of like the level of bullishness or bearishness, or just like the level of activity in different sectors.
No, totally. And I think there might be a little bit more upside to shifting bullish bearish. My fatal flaw is being a perma-bull for Ethereum. That started a long time ago, and like even when it was just getting slaughtered in early 2025, I was like, the bottom's got to be in sometime soon. When a lot of people were like, yeah, this is a terrible coin and it's time to move on. But I think it's more fun. It's more fun just to be a bull in life generally. You have uncapped upside and you have capped downside on any kind of market, because it can only go to zero.
ICO Beast, man, congrats on the new role. Congrats on the big raise for Kalshi. Thanks for spending some time with us here today. Wish you the best. It's going to be a crazy day for you, I'm sure. So I'll let you get back to firing board over there, to the battle set, which is your keyboard.
Back to the mine.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming on. We'll see you next time. It was a lot of fun.
Peace out. Alrighty. Bang. Huge raise for Kalshi. Huge raise for Kalshi. Huge.
Dude, I'm ready for these markets to just explode.
The crypto markets.
The prediction markets.
On the edge, dude. The crypto markets are on the edge. They're so close. You can feel it. I mean, it's just, they feel like they're ready to just go. Like we had, like, it almost was going to go like a couple days back, and then this pullback, but it's not going to take much, I don't think, to send these things.
I think Trump's talking about tariffs again, so we're dumping a little bit.
Oh,
I'm really thinking about prediction. I just think when these things really get entrenched,
yeah,
it's going to be a whole new game.
Yeah,
this is eating sports books. It's
Yeah.
eating election polls. The volume is now hitting hockey stick growth.
Yeah.
They're
Isn't it crazy that they raised before the hockey stick growth happened? It's nuts. Like you can see, like, the time. I saw a chart, and like the growth happened after this raise. So, people are already saying that they shot for a valuation too low.
Right.
So, up next, we got Avery from Aptos Labs. We're gonna get him up. I'm gonna take a quick breather on this one. Let Rob rip it.
This one's gonna be a banger, dude. Where are you going?
And we'll go into this one.
Epic. Let's get it going. I'm stoked. We're gonna get Avery up whenever he's ready. We are back. Welcome, Avery Ching, to the Rollup TV. It is an absolute pleasure to host you here on the Rollup. Tons of action. The plight back to America is in full force when it comes to crypto. The regulatory landscape is evolving. You guys are certainly aware of this because World Liberty Finance, USD1, very very America aligned. When it comes to the things that are happening on Aptos. Avery, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Fantastic to be here, Robbie. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, same here. So I just got back from Singapore and Seoul and the whole conference tour. I think you did as well. It's a shame that we didn't, get to meet up out there. But one of the things that I picked up was that, like, there's certainly a retail audience out there, but when it comes to building, it comes to institutional access and developments, it's happening right here in America. Maybe you could talk about what you're seeing on a more general note. You guys were in America, you guys were out of America, and now coming back. So maybe you could just kind of tell your story about how you saw the landscape evolve and how you were able to navigate that as a founder.
So I think the start of blockchains in America is definitely a complicated one, given the previous administration to the current one. Our story begins back actually while we were at Meta, working on the Libra project, DM project, and I think definitely ran some pitfalls and some challenges working with the existing administration at that time, as well as the current regulatory climate. Obviously, things have changed a lot with Donald Trump taking the presidency and the crypto forward effort, and I think all the positive work coming out of the stable and genius, as well as the Clarity Act. I was very fortunate to actually participate in a hearing and a testimonial from the House Agriculture Committee on the Clarity Act, and definitely try to promote as much as possible. And it seems like there's tremendous progress being made in this space. So we've definitely been full force and trying to be upfront in our policies, and working closely with the administration, with our partners across the space, our investors, to push forward towards responsible regulation in America, especially towards DeFi for American citizens, as well as with clarity around how does market structure work for companies like ours that want to be based in America. So it's been a tremendous experience. I think, talking about World Liberty Fi, they have a lot of the same goals, right? They want to see DeFi and cryptocurrency expand in America and the world beyond. And they're amazing partners to work with in this space, starting off with USD1, but then many more things to come.
Well, why do you think the team backing, and obviously there's the Trump family that's affiliated with World Liberty Fi. Why do you think the Trump team chose Aptos as one of the launch partners for World Liberty Fi?
Yeah, we're definitely proud to be chosen as like their first kind of move partner for World Liberty Fi for USD1. I think there's just a really strong alignment of mission, right? Like we met the team many times, starting from our time in Washington throughout the months until now, and we've always been looking for ways to work together. I think there's just a strong alignment of like seeing the same kind of values and like looking for that American innovation to be present. And we're definitely happy that they're launching their stablecoin, but it's just one of many products, right? They have a debit card announced, they have other retail apps and consumer apps being planned, and we want to do more with them. I mean, because partnering the USD1 integration with the fastest and cheapest way to move money around the world just enables it to reach many more customers, to replace existing obsolete systems, and to kind of support distribution of scale that was built for billions of people around the world.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone who's unfamiliar, USD1 is the stable coin that is born out of the World Liberty Fi ecosystem. It's similar, and I think there's a lot of synergy here because World Liberty Fi is a friendly fork of Aave, and so it's actually got very similar smart contract infrastructure in the back end. It's going to be its front end will be very directed towards U.S. citizens. It'll be friendly in the U.S. and it'll have the same sort of integration that Aave has with Go, but it'll be World Liberty Fi and USD1. And this is generally part of the U.S.'s strategy for stablecoins. I think we've seen this burgeoning market for stablecoins. It's expanding. We're seeing public stablecoins, like the state of Wyoming is launching a stablecoin, private stablecoins, where Liberty Fi is going to be an issuer. I'm curious, how do you see the injection of USD1 into Aptos and into World Liberty Fi? How do you see this playing out as it proliferates into the rest of the Aptos DeFi ecosystem? What do you think the effect of, maybe generally the effect of a growth in the stablecoin supply, but then more specifically USD1, how do you think that will affect the rest of Aptos DeFi?
Yeah, so going back again, Aptos was built as a payments engine, and that's kind of evolved now to global trading engine, which is like serving not just stablecoin assets moving around, but all assets in the world. But stablecoins are a huge part of that. We've got all the major stables on Aptos today: USDT, USDC, USDE, PYUSD, now USD1, and more to come for sure. We think that there are different use cases for different stables, and so seeing like USD1 start to grow extremely rapidly. I think in a day, it like went from 0 to like 30 million of TVL, and it's going to be growing extremely rapidly, I suspect, given the high demand for the networks. And also, we've seen a strong proliferation of it into different DeFi products. Hyperion, Panora. You can today use a Picture wallet and swap into USD1 super easily and super cheap, right? It's going to be less than half a second and cost you a hundredth of a cent, like basically free. So I think it'll grow very, very fast. But we also see that, if we look at various trends, USDT has been growing extremely fast in Aptos. We're now like number 2 by transactions, number 4 by TVL, just starting from the beginning of the year, really. And then USDC has also been growing very rapidly. I think we're the fastest growing USDC chain since their launch. And it's no surprise, stables are really meant for a blockchain that can move assets extremely quickly, extremely cheap. And a lot of that transactional volume today happens on centralized exchanges, but definitely to proliferate more towards the kind of remittance use cases and then payments use cases over time.
I'm sure you attribute some of the TVL growth and the transaction growth. Some of that is attributable to the stablecoins, USD1, World Liberty Fi, all these successful launches. What else? What do you think is some of the primary drivers of the TVL growth in transactions, the general activity that you guys are seeing in Aptos now?
I mean, if I got like paid every time someone came and told me like I used USDT on Aptos to like transfer my funds around from different networks, we wouldn't have to be working anymore. But like that's the usual use case we hear about. It's just a cheaper and faster way to send money around. You don't have to wait for those bazillion confirmations. It's there instantaneously. There's no guessing games. There's no counterparty risk. Money transfers very freely and efficiently, and that's what we really want for a global like trading engine.
Got it. I want to circle back to something just in the early history of Aptos, being born out of the Move ecosystem, part of the Libra project at Facebook, which is still kind of this mysterious thing that kind of got shut down back then, but is now seemingly coming true in a variety of ways. If Facebook had tried to do Libra now with the administration, the regulatory landscape, it feels like it would have gone through no questions asked. and they would have been another one of these issuers of stablecoins. And so what do you think has changed from then to now? Do you think the technology has changed? Has it been kind of on the builder ecosystem, or is it simply just the regulatory landscape?
I think the regulatory landscape has changed a lot. And I think that you're absolutely right that the new administration, whatever Libra and 𝘠𝘪𝘴 are trying to do, would definitely go through today, just to be very transparent. But that being said, like, the technology has advanced a ton. I mean, we've been able to get scalability well beyond what we could do back in our Libra Diem days. And that was, meant for billions of people. But now, it's definitely a worldwide based system now. We can support more transactional volume than Visa, MasterCard, and all the other payments processors put together combined. And we can do it at a latency that's just unbelievably fast. Like, that's to support not just the general payments use cases, but micropayments, streaming payments, and all deep end projects are kind of just, when you think about it, giant payment engines, right? Like, you're just transferring economics from one party to another. So that's exactly what Aptos is built for. And now we can expand that mission from just like a payments engine for Instagram, WhatsApp, et cetera, to like, kind of any kind of transfer of assets and use case around the world.
Yeah. The social media companies are still extremely effective at distribution, and embedding a stable coin or some sort of cryptocurrency economic function into those applications will, again, just explode the activity. Do you guys have a social media strategy? Are you building out any social financial apps on your own at Aptos? Or are you guys planning some sort of integration with any of the major social media apps?
So we definitely been working closely with a lot of our remittance partners. We've got 𝘱𝑗𝘳 as a partner. We have Coins.ph. We have Yellow Card, and many others to come. So on the remittance side, there's a lot of use cases for money transfer around the world, especially in countries in which people kind of work for a living and then they want to send money back to their relatives. It's a really great use case. But for the social media use case, I mean, it seems so obvious, right? Like, likes and other kind of emojis or like kind of reactions are definitely an inferior method compared to people kind of contributing funds toward creators. Those are much more scarce. Those are kind of not gameable, and I think a much stronger signal for content kind of upvoting and downvoting than just like someone hitting a button and spamming that with a ton of bots. And so we are definitely in deep discussions around different options for that. Another area that we kind of focus on is loyalty. So we've been working on some kind of pre-payments type things with like Lotte, who's like the largest retailer in South Korea. They've already deployed voucher type programs to millions of people there and looking to expand that. So we work with very large corporations. We'll have kind of some big upcoming announcements in this space, like around how loyalty programs, how distribution of stablecoin usage towards kind of high volume applications are going to really transform the market. That's kind of really what Aptos is built really well for.
Don't front run your announcements, but is there anything you can share?
Yeah. I can't front run the announcements. My marketing team will get me.
Okay. All right. Well, come on again soon. We'll talk more about those when they do come out. It makes so much sense. I think you're describing loyalty programs for major retailers. Ultimately, now it feels like the vision that, again, Facebook had back then, it's coming true now. It's everyone's launching a stable coin, like Walmart stablecoin, Facebook stablecoin, like World Liberty Finance stablecoin. How do you think our perception of money and finance is going to adapt? Maybe don't see the back end. They're going to have this idea of fungibility. It's all just going to be considered dollars. But can you just talk a bit more about how loyalty programs and company issued stablecoins might look similar, might work together to sort of adapt this landscape?
Well, we definitely see a lot of people thinking about loyalty programs in relationship to kind of being able to transfer value into stablecoins and stable kind of fiat, right? Like, so it's not dissimilar today. Like, if I get a certain amount of points on my Chase Sapphire card, I might be able to transfer that to like $100, in real fiat, right? So I think those are kind of the natural synergies between those two products. But I think of loyalty points as also just like a very cheaper form of currency and one that's more regulatory compliant. So easier to start with, and something that a lot of the large companies are thinking about. But this is where Aptos really shines because of its low fees, right? Because if you're going to transfer like very low values, like of like a cent or something like that across the network, you can't pay a cent for it. You can't even pay 1/10 of a cent for it, right? So it's just too expensive, right? Even 1/100 of a cent is kind of like the bare minimum. That's like where Aptos is kind of standing alone in that category, being able to support these extremely low value transfers very effectively and efficiently. And that will work well for kind of any social media app or for loyalty points or for anything you want to transfer value across the network.
Yeah. And that's why it works so well for payments and remittances.
Exactly.
I'm curious. We've had a lot of stablecoin conversations on this channel with the likes of, RWA experts and tokenization, these guys and generally people who are thinking a lot about this category. And there seems to be this natural sequence where you start thinking about payments and remittances. And once you build up that foundation and you kind of have the distribution network for stablecoins, the next logical step is to get yield on those stablecoins. And, that could come from DeFi, but that might, require some movement and some user interaction, at least how DeFi has been enabled up until this point. That's kind of where RWAs are coming in. Do you guys have, and what is Aptos's RWA strategy?
Well, Aptos is definitely one of the leaders in RWAs. You can take a look at 𝘬𝘭𝘵𝘬𝘭𝑗𝑥𝑦𝑧. We're always among the top. We have tokenized money market fund and other funds from BlackRock, 𝘲𝘂𝘶 Hamilton, Apollo, many others as well. And we work closely with Pact Protocol, who is deploying kind of smaller loans of 10 to 50K across emerging markets to help people, for instance, like buy a scooter to get a job at a delivery company, things like that. It's something I think that fits very well with kind of our background, right? We have very safe asset movement with Move. We have kind of support institutions, and we want to see a lot of the real world assets kind of making their way on chain to your point, provide different kinds of yield options. But the kind of future we see here is, the entire world is going to move on chain when it comes to finance, right? We're going to start to get paid on chain, where there's going to be stables or native crypto, and then those stables would probably earn yield, through your point, around like these different kinds of assets. These different tokens have different yield structures. Some of them a bit more risky, some of them a bit less risky, and those will be automatically earning yield when we get our paychecks. And then you'll see the kind of world in transition to loans and to credit, and then to kind of offboarding into the fiat world with credit cards, and then ideally toward investment, right? Like that's why we're building out like a really powerful exchange technology to support people to invest in different kinds of assets, crypto, non-crypto assets, as well as composites of these assets, using AI bots and others to kind of generate their portfolio construction that matches their risk tolerance and their desires, right? So that seems like the clear future, and I think that's exactly what we're building towards.
Let me just give you some data for all the haters out there that might be questioning, RWA like what is Aptos doing in RWAs? Like these numbers actually speak for themselves. Almost $1 billion of tether on Aptos. And so that's obviously kind of top line stablecoin numbers that are going to end up flowing into several of these into these instruments. Berkeley Square emerging markets portfolio, number 1 has 160 million. Number 2 has 190 million. So and then there's an NPA portfolio that has another 100 million. When it comes to the scale of RWAs and generally the progression of off-chain finance meeting on-chain finance, and generally these things just becoming finance, how do you like close this loop? What do you see as a potential? Where are we at now and where are we going?
We're obviously growing very fast. I think Aptos is pretty much the fastest growing network when it comes to RWAs and stablecoins, kind of moving to network as quickly as possible. We've been very pleased with our trajectory. And with all these new stables like WorldWFI's UST1 being selected, but as their move chain to start with, like we're very, very excited obviously about that. But the future, of course, is trillions on chain. Like that's a real number. We see the kind of money movement that happens across today's fiat currencies, across banking systems. That's got to move on chain at some point. For the efficiencies we mentioned, like there's no other system that can move money as quickly and as efficiently and as safely as possible than the blockchain, and then specifically Aptos.
Absolutely. And where are you focusing now? Is it focusing on RWAs, payments, remittances? Is there kind of a root of this industry that you're focusing on, and from that kind of grows out these other sectors? What are you mainly focused on these days at Aptos?
Great question. So we kind of have 2 major focuses. So first, we're building a global trading engine. Again, talking about our mission, we kind of expanded from a payments network to this like trading of all assets. And of course, stable is the largest RWA today, but it is not the only RWA. And we see a lot more coming on board through these kind of private credit, through money market funds, through many other issuances. We're starting to see tokenization of other assets. Real estate assets are on top of Aptos as well, through a company called PropBase, but much more expansion to come in the future on that side. But trading in general, we feel is a very kind of underserved market. We've definitely seen the likes of Hyperliquid and Aster kind of capturing minds and attention. But the reality is the centralized exchange market is a $50 billion a year plus industry that is not able to provide the kind of asset access to both users and assets and even trust that a decentralized exchange can do. And so I think we're just scratching the surface. Like Hyperliquid and Aster are scratching the surface of what can be done, but there's a lot more to do here. And it kind of requires, I think, a complete redesign of the entire stack. And this is where I think we have a huge edge, because with the Move language, with the Aptos blockchain, we already have a great foundation, of course, with our like extremely performant infrastructure. But now we're adding in specific kind of key exchange principles that are important. Like how do we, give a slight edge to market makers versus kind of takers through a priority or last look type features? How do we support the ability to kind of prevent any kind of MEV type attacks on traders? Like it's horrible to think about when I trade on certain kind of exchange blockchains, I get front run or I get sandwich attacked. And yes, those profits go back to network to some degree, but nobody wants that experience as a trader. It's not what we've seen in existing trading systems, right? So the ability for us to hide those transactions, encrypt those transactions until they're ordered, prevents that from happening at all. But that requires, again, really redesigning the entire stack around these kind of features and performance, and then supporting trading operations at a scale that's not possible elsewhere. It's not a general purpose smart contracts language. It's not going to work. You need to have very specific trading primitives enshrined into the core VM, into the language itself, and then kind of the interoperability with other parts of the DeFi ecosystem, including stables. So we're very focused on building the global trading engine and fastest exchange of assets. We have a project called 𝘸𝘪 we've been working alongside with to make this happen, a full stack exchange for both perps and spot. And of course, other Aptos ecosystem projects that are kind of working in the same space will benefit from all these features. So that's one thing that we're very, very focused on. We think that is a important part of the future landscape of crypto. The second area that's also important to us is going to be around decentralized compute, cloud compute. And at first, we might think that's very different, but we kind of think of these things as very complementary. You have on the cloud side, huge opportunities. Like there's no real technology in the space that can be meant to serve any cloud workloads that centralized cloud providers have, like the AWSs, the Azures, the GCPs of the world. And so we've been working closely with Jump Crypto on a new project called 𝘱𝘭𝘵, which is the first hot, like kind of real-time decentralized storage that can serve like sub-second reads. This means you can kind of build out great creator platforms, have the decentralized TikTok, decentralized YouTube. You talked about social earlier. This is like the missing piece, to have decentralized kind of social platforms paired with payments engines and rails to kind of support creators in an unprecedented scale. Then you have kind of course, AI is blowing up, right? The Oracle just signed a $300 billion a year contract, not billion a year contract, but a $300 billion contract with OpenAI, right? And that's a massive contract. The space itself is a $300 billion space, growing 30% year over year. And so for us to kind of support these AI use cases around data licensing, data modeling, data usage, training, inference, all this other stuff, we think 𝘱𝘭𝘵 is a key component of that infrastructure. And the last use case is like for enterprises. So folks like the NASDAQ actually have more than half their business actually happening. It's not part of the exchange, but the offline analytics and services that come after that. Be able to service those markets and support those infrastructures that traditionally use cloud, but they're really about sharing data across the world, having those feeds proliferate, having analytics built on top of it. Like those kind of use cases are also very important and can be done on more effectively and more performantly on top of decentralized infra. So these kind of, in summary, like again, global trading engine, decentralized cloud are our two focuses. And these are like, on the cloud side, we see as like value creation. And on the exchange side, we see more as the value exchange. And so they're very complementary to each other.
Absolutely. And these are core pieces of the technology that are innovating on finance. And I think we're just continuing to see the integration and convergence between finance and technology to make our financial system more efficient. And the 𝘱𝘭𝘵 partnership sounds really, really cool. Jump Crypto, curious to learn more about that. But I just want to have a last couple questions because you also announced a recent partnership with Chainlink. CCIP is coming to Aptos. And this, again, just opens up the door for more efficiency, more capital efficiency, and a generally more performant economy. Maybe you could just say a little bit about how the partnership with Chainlink is happening and generally what CCIP brings to Aptos.
Yeah, we've been very pleased to work with alongside partners like Chainlink and Aave, who all kind of work very closely together in this space to bring what we call like very trusted financial services on chain, right? So obviously very trusted, used by 𝘠𝘪𝘵𝑒𝑟, deployed to Aptos as kind of the first non-EVM chain, and then like Chainlink kind of were the first move chain, working alongside them to kind of bring on their real-world assets on the network. And I think there are huge partners in how we support 𝘠𝘪𝘵𝑒𝑟's USD1. So yeah, we're very, very pleased to work with such, credible and trusted institutions on bringing DeFi and finance on chain.
Awesome, Avery. Well, thank you so much for joining. It was an absolute pleasure, and you guys have a great network of partners. I'd love to bring you on again next time you come and announce another great partnership, and we continue to talk about it.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure, Robbie.
Thanks.
Bang. Avery, Aptos, huge announcement. I missed it. Rob, what was the key takeaways there?
I'm going to just the fact that they're continuing to push on RWAs.
Look at Foxy.
George.
Foxy, come here. How you doing, girl? Fox, what are you doing back there?
Say hello to Fox.
Look at that. The boys got their dogs. Oh.
That's my boy.
George.
This is why I was late this morning.
Foxy, you want to come play? Come here. All right, we're gonna watch the Kalshi video together. All right. All right, we're gonna watch the Kalshi video. Put it. The boys react. Pretty badass video.
Yeah.
Pretty badass video.
I like it. I like it.
All right, guys, just wanted to show you guys that. We'll flip it back. Call this one a day. It's been a fun stream. Really enjoyed. Had a good time. And we'll see you guys next week. Some really fun streams outside of ours happening in the world of streaming today. So looking forward to hopping on those, vibing out with those, and just checking out what's going on. So, yeah, Rob, that's all that I got.
Same here, brother. It's been a good week. It's been a busy week. Tons happening. We're just moving at a breakneck speed.
Yeah.
See you guys next week on the fastest growing stream in crypto, the most innovative Rollup TV.